All right. Good evening, everyone. Here we are again in this the second week of our study of the books by Manoel Philomeno de Miranda, and we're starting tonight, as we do here from live from Toronto, in Canada. We're going to start very soon our book study of the book Planetary Transition, as we have here, right? And hello, friends. It's so nice to see everyone coming in again and joining us online. I hope you guys had a chance of reading the chapters and thinking about some of the topics we've been covering with this beautiful, beautiful work of Manuel Philomeno de Miranda through the mediumship of our beloved Givaldo Franco, right? And hello, Eve is online. Hello, Eve. I see your wave there. Thank you for joining us. That's amazing to see you. That's very nice. And we're just going to wait just a few minutes for everyone can slowly roll in and connect with us so we can get started in this lovely study. And just a reminder for everyone, today we're doing Planetary Transition chapters 2 and chapter 3, right? And I'm sure there's a lot for us to talk about tonight. So it's gonna be very interesting, I'm sure. All right, my friends, and just as a reminder for everyone coming in, this is a part of our routine weekly studies now at the Toronto Spirit Society on Monday nights, and we're also live on Kardec Radio. Kardec Radio friends, hello! I see a number of you joining in now. Thank you so much for joining us in this study. It's a pleasure to be here. For those who don't know me, my name is Marco Magalhaes. Um, and, I'm, oh, Teresa is joining us. Thank you, Teresa. So nice to see you again. I hope we have some comments today. We fixed that little, fixed the bug with the YouTube today. Um, all right. So now that I see some of you already in, let us all get started now. And as we do here in the Cardiac Radio and the Toronto Spirit Society, we're going to start with a little prayer, right? Because, we're here for one good reason, right? It's to learn, to help each other, to, understand a little bit of the spiritual relationship with the physical world and spiritual world, but also we're always guided by our Master Jesus, right? So for everyone out there, let us take this moment now and connect with this beautiful energy that surrounds us. Let us elevate our thoughts and connect to this beautiful image of Jesus coming in our homes, coming joining us in this moment so we can feel his energy, the good vibrations that emanate from that incredible spirit that guide us through his actions every day. The governor of our planet, right? The perfection, the guide, the the route that we have to follow, right? And let us ask for the blessing of tonight so we can enjoy this moment of learning, of charity, and understanding of who we are and how can we move forward through the works of Manoel Philomeno. Thank you, God, for this opportunity, and so be it. All right, everyone. So let's get started right into our work today. All right. So, and if you guys have any comments, again, if you have anything you want to talk about, you can feel free to write comments. I can see you guys online here with me in the comments, and we have a nice discussion of this book, right? Again, just for those of you who missed the first day, this is a study about the book Planetary Transition by Manoel Philomeno de Miranda. And this book primarily focuses on three different things, according to Manoel Philomeno de Miranda. He writes this right in the introduction, like on the prologue of the book. It studies the complex spiritual activities during this event, the tsunami in the Indian Ocean in 2004. It also talks about the contribution of spirits dedicated to reincarnation of new spirits, new workers that are coming to help us. Oh, what a blessing, my friends. Can you imagine that, right? And analyzing this interference of some spirits trying to kind of slow down that process, right? And kind of how can we learn from this, right? So that's the setup, right? For this lovely book. And I see Michelle watching too. Oh, Michelle, I miss you guys so much, right? I hope you guys are having lots of fun, lots of love for you guys, right? So join us tonight. All right. So we're going to go today into chapter 2, right? And as you can see here, I have an image of Yvon Costa, right? And why do I have that image? We're going to learn very soon, right? Because he's going to be a very important piece of this puzzle. And I have to say that I'm learning a lot too in this study, because I'm learning about some of the incredible figures, right, that were so important to this early movement of Spiritism in Brazil. And I'm actually very excited to learn about them. So let's see what's happening. So remember when we left over in chapter 1, we have this beautiful moment, right, between Oscar, his friend, between Manoel Philomeno, and they're all talking about the mission that they're going to do, preparations, right, the organization of it, and they talk about the special visitor that's coming to Colônia Redenção. So let's see what's happening. So these preparations are going, and they're ready to see this spirit called Ryan, right? It's a higher order spirit visiting Colônia Redenção, and he's coming from a very special place, as you guys can see. So what is cool about this chapter, right? So, one and the very first thing is like they talk about where the meeting is happening, right? So here's the thing. So they're setting up this visitor coming in to deliver a message to them, right? It's not disorganized or random, right? This is really organized. They're going to set up a place for them. There's an auditorium with all the AV set up. There's people waiting to help the spirit to present himself there. There's this beautiful multiple seat place. There's a choir. So there's all this incredible preparation. So again, this is very similar to kind of what we would do, right? We have a special visitor come in our place and to deliver a lecture in our spiritist centers, right? I don't know, all of us have been through that. We're expecting a visitor, we prepare, we got to set up, we have a nice auditorium, we have connection, we have a, entertain, have all this set up. So that's exactly what's happening too in Colônia Redenção. And not only that, the timing, right? They say very specific, right? At 8 o'clock, they're going to come and they're going to deliver the message. So we got to be ready. Everybody's walking. So no one's late. Remember, like we talk about in our meetings all the time, like you got to be on time. You got to be ready. So that is nothing different in the spiritual world, right? They're really prepared for all of this. Okay. And interestingly, they always bring this music, right, to the meeting, just like we heard about in chapter 1. They're going to bring again music as a preparation for the meeting. And the children's choir is singing Psalm 51. And Psalm 51, if you guys don't remember, I wrote it here. So it's really the idea of Lord, have mercy on me, right? So it's one of those deep, sincere repentance, right? It's a very intense, in a way of regarding this biblical understanding of repentance and being sorry for mistakes and working on it and moving on from it, right? Very interesting, right? And then when the meeting starts, they're going to bring Yvon Costa to do the opening prayer, right? But who's Yvon Costa, right? This is interesting. Yvon Costa, he was born in 1898 in Minas Gerais, in Brazil, in the city of Eugenópolis, right? And as many of us, as you can probably imagine, have been through, while going through some challenging times in his life, he actually finds, not randomly, he finds a spiritist center that he walked in and he immediately connected to that, right? He is a physician, he's studied, went to university, but when we connect to that spiritist center, he immediately comprehends the message of Kardec. And this is not by chance, right? We all know how this happens, right? We all been preparing ourselves for that. We're ready for the mission. We come in and there you go. That's our moment that we're like, aha, this is where we've been missing and we're ready to work. That's exactly what happens to him. He has an incredible gift of oratory, right? Not only that, he speaks multiple languages, right? He's very intelligent. He's a great physician. He's a great character. He's like incredible individual, incredible spirit. And he becomes one of the most prominent speakers at the time, right? And this is early 1900s, as you can imagine, right? So this is very early after Kardec is working on the codification books in France. So you see that there's almost like a temporal overlap with spirits incarnating there along surrounding Kardec to help in his mission. And there's also a number of other spirits already being incarnated in Brazil in order to continue and fulfill this mission of spiritism, right? And we also think about, oh, this some spirits have specific missions, right? For example, Yvonne Costa came with this mission of spreading the word of spiritism, right, in the early beginning, and solidifying, among other future figures too at that time, the spiritist movement in Brazil. So incredible story, very interesting, and I had a great time learning more about it, right? So the prayer of Yvonne Costa. Now, the opening prayer of Yvonne Costa by itself, right? It should merit its own study, right? And this is all in chapter 2. You guys can read that in more detail, right? He provides this incredible historical perspective on so many topics, right? And he's talking about the awakening, right? When do we actually wake up, right, for the spiritual and moral principles? When do humanity starts to realize that it's not about matter, it's not about power, it's not about money, it is about moral evolution? And he goes through this very interesting story, all the ways from the Sumerians going to Persia, Babylon, wars, spiritual evolution in Asia, talking about China and Fohi, like how does that develop over there? Does the idea of spirituality, and then goes through Moses, Ezra, Cyrus, and the history, how we then connected with the idea of one God, that we have opportunities to learn from that. He going all the way to Socrates, Alexander the Great with the power, and all those opportunities. We learn little bits of that understanding of the moral principles of evolution. And then we finally come at the end of this story where we're connecting now. We're like, now Spiritism brings this and puts it all together and talks about the idea of being reborn countless times before awakening to life. In other words, chances of coming back, reincarnation, action and reaction, moral principles, law of progress. I could put all of it together, right? That we've been learning from different perspectives in different times in humanity, right? And then he ends the prayer, right, as you can see here, by finishing the prayer that we are here at your service, God. Have mercy, O Lord, which is picking up from the choir of Psalm 51, right? So he brings this Psalm 51 from the kids, brings that concept of evolution, and then at the end, putting ourselves in a position to say, yep, God, have mercy. We're here. We're ready for you. We're ready for this mission, right? Absolutely beautiful prayer. I really recommend you guys reading it, but as you can see, you're gonna have to read a few times, right? Because I spent quite a bit of time trying to get the whole story, right? But very interesting, and also read more about Yvonne Costa, because I have to say I was touched by the importance and the incredible role of Yvonne while incarnated, right? All right, so moving on. So who are we talking about? Who is this visitor, right? So the chapter 2, right after the prayer, they now starts to talk about this special guest that's coming to visit Colin and Son. And Orion, and then they say at the end that the materialization is complete, right? And describe him, right? So taller, eyes that are like flaming stars, harmonious appearance, right? And he's a visitor from the Pleiades, right? What is that? Actually, that's the image that on the slide right behind us there. So that's the constellation of the Pleiades, also known as the Seven Sisters of Messier 45 or M45. So this is interesting. This is a very prominent, the cluster that's located, cluster of stars located about 440 light years away from us, from the Taurus constellation. It's visible to the naked eye. So it's actually go to one of those sky tracker apps and actually find it, which is very interesting. If you on a clear night, you can probably see very well. And it is a group of blue stars. It's a very young cluster and contains about 1,000 stars. This is all from Wikipedia, right? Surrounded by this reflection nebula, like, connecting those, right? So that is where, as we guys connect a little bit of what we know so far in Spiritism, a number of highly evolved spirits will come, right? And not only that, Ryan, the spirit that we're talking about, knows very well about Jesus, and that's Jesus' invitation to Orion to come and talk to us on Earth. That's why he's coming visiting us, right? So absolutely incredible visit. And not only that, multiple spirits from the Pleiades are coming at the same time to different colonies in the spirit world to actually deliver this beautiful message. So how beautiful is that? Imagine, if everyone think about it for a second, that at any moment we're having visitors from very high order spirits, very elevated spirits coming to visit us to deliver messages in our spiritual cities, very close to us. So that's incredible. It makes us think a lot about that connection, right? That we have with the spiritual world, and how we're always supported and loved. And we don't even know that this is happening, right? And I'm like, we're here focused on our daily things, our work and stress and all of that. And out there, there's this absolutely constellation of work happening under the guidance of our governor, Jesus, right? That's bringing to us, to our earth, our little rock, our little ship, as Manoel Philomeno says, this amazing blessings, right, that we receive. So it was really interesting to see that too. And then we go into chapter 3. Now, chapter 3, if you can get chapter 3, I think that's a great summary of the book. That's what I found. I don't know what you guys found, but chapter 3 is almost like you get like the ABCD type of summary. This is what's going on, right? And makes it very easy for us to follow the story moving after that, right? So Ryan will come, and the first thing Ryan's going to say is that we're here in answer to the invitation of the sublime governor of planet Earth, right? Jesus Christ, right? Remember, Jesus Christ met when Earth was forming, right? And then he met again, right? When, not only he incarnated, but then he met again to define the routes of the Spiritist doctrine and how, or the Spiritism, right? When we don't use the word doctrine very much in North America, so the Spiritism, right? Again, just to show you that there's this incredible hierarchical organization of the worlds, based on moral principles, and there's a well-defined chain of facts and blessings and messages and help that occurs down to earth. So how blessed are we, right, that we have all of this happening around us, right, just to allow us to actually improve ourselves, right? Is like, I always like to think about parallels to what we do, right? And one of the parallels that I draw is like, I'm thinking about, maybe a kid that's struggling, is having a hard time in school, right? And then everybody gets together. You have family, you have teachers, you have principals, we have the system kind of working together. If you're a teacher or professor, you understand what I'm saying. Like, there's the whole movement that occurs behind the scene to support, to nurture, to allow the development of that kid, right, in an educational setup, right? And this is us. Like, this is us, right? On a moral, spiritual perspective, there's this whole constellation of actions happening right now that allow us to be here talking about Manoel Philomeno de Miranda. And that's, when you make that connection, I think you can feel that energy inside of you. And I really think you should focus on that, right? So, important topics on chapter 3. Let's go through them, right? So the program that this Orion's talking about is of elevating humanity through the incarnation of elevated spirits. That's also described in other books, right? You have many other books, such as Genesis, like you have André Luiz books, you have Humberto de Campos, right? Talking to us about, this constant influx, right, of higher order spirits that come on Earth to give us a little push, right, to give us a little push. And again, making a parallel, making a comparison to what happens in our world, right? This is very similar to what we do, right? When you have, and I like to make comparisons with schools. I'm super biased, right? Because of my profession as a professor. It's like when we go visit other universities and places to help them out, to exchange ideas, to help bring their science up, helping, develop the program, helping start a program or a research program or educational academic program, right? There's always these ways, right, we do to bring, and this is what the spirits are doing. They're bringing spirits, higher, more elevated spirits from different places, right, to incarnate, like Capella, for example, right? We're going to talk about, and it's going to bring in us a little bit of a push, right? Hello, Marisa. Marisa, join us. Good evening. Nice to see you. I see everybody join us. That's so nice. All of you present here. I can't see all your names, but I know you're all there. So these spirits that are coming, as Ryan's going to say, this is not the first time, right? It comes from all the dwellings, right? And they contribute to the construction of humanity, like who we are, like our physical bodies, our development of technology, right? Science, philosophy. But we obviously developed science and philosophy and technology a lot. But, as you can imagine, there's also the moral spiritual component of it that needs to be um, evolved. And Ryan tells us that the spirits are coming from the constellation of Auriga, which is like a bright pentagon in the stars, according to Wikipedia. And it's famous because Capella is there. So see, Capella, again, the same connection, right? When we have this jump in evolution of humans as we are, because of the Capella spirits that come to us. Now, and Capella is also continue to provide some help and support, right, from that same constellation, right? And also important that our own planet, right, is going through an evolution process, right? Because evolution is not a thing that is out there, right? When we're talking about evolution, we're talking about us embedded into the process of evolution, right? So we're talking about our planet evolving, us evolving, everyone surrounding us evolving. So it's a process, right? That we're part of it. So we are almost like we are co-creators of that process, right? We're working together, right, for that to happen. It's not out there, it's coming from here, right? But our planet is also going through a lot of changes, right? Our planet, our little boat, our little ship, vessel, right? The Earth is also going through its own evolution. And we know, like, there's natural changes, events, seismic events, all these things happening that is part of the natural process. Remember, our planet was going through a very intense transformation a few billion years ago, and now we're kind of settled to what we have now, right? But also, Ryan says that, well, there's a lot of spirits that haven't been incarnating for a long time, and they're going to be called back, right, to have another chance. So we can see if we're going to move together when Earth evolves, or they're going to be left to another colony or another dwelling that has more and synergistic vibrations with their state of mind. What is Ryan talking about? What is Ryan talking about in summary is that there are some spirits that have not progressed at the same level of the remaining part of our planet Earth, spiritual and physically speaking, right? So that lack of sync, right, between that process will eventually lead them to either going to help another planet by incarnating in the lower orders world, or they're going to catch up and merge with us, right? So we don't know, right? So, but this is happening right now. Okay, that's what Ryan says, is telling us. So he also calls our planet the great earthly ship, which I really like, because it's really like, if you think about it, we're basically this little rock shooting down the universe, spinning around the little ball of gases that we call the sun. And it's almost like, yes, we are in this little ship, like in this little boat, right? Traveling together, right? So many spirits are having a last chance, as Ryan says. Some are aggressive, some are indifferent, some are suffering, right? It's not easy, right? And there's this laws of exchange that he mentions to us that some of them will be sent to another world and some of them will continue, right? So then there's a question on page 35 on this edition here that I have from the editorial layout, this edition right there. On page 35, it says, why should spirits come from another orb to help our planet? That is a great question. We talk about this all the time, and I think he answers it in a very good way, right? He says, you know what? Think about it, right? Why are spirits coming from another place to help us? Well, first of all, they don't have the same ties and painful encounters and issues connections to history in this planet, so it's a little bit easier for them to not be dragged into, right, the histories, right, they have in this planet. They're also more advanced morally, right? So they're coming from higher order worlds and they're bringing that as part of their own mission of progression. They're actually helping us, right? Which is perfection, like the law of justice exemplified, right? And but also there are other people in this planet that need to help, right? Some speakers, mediums, you name it, right? People from here that will support this influx of spirits, parents that are accepting these spirits coming in, right? So we're all part of it, right? Ryan also talks about this upheaval of climate change phenomena, like, obviously there's a typo there, that will not occur in the form of destruction, but in order of change of morals and emotions. So in other words, the changes that we're seeing in this world are not necessarily for a destruction perspective, but to improve moral and emotional components too, right? That's very important to remember that. Okay. All right. So, before, and then he continues to say, and I'm, going through the chapter 3 here on page 37, we're going to read a little bit about it in a minute, right? He continues like this, and I'll read directly from the book just to make it easier for everyone to understand. Okay? But before reaching that point of transition that we're talking about, right? Violence, sensuality, abjection, scandals, corruption will reach unheard of levels, right? Reaching the bottom of the well, while degenerative illnesses, bipolar disorders, heart diseases, cancers, addictions, sexual deviances will cry out for peace, for a return to ethics, morals, and balance. So what he's warning us is that, listen carefully, there's a lot of things that are going to happen before we make that step, right? And it may look like things are actually getting worse. No, they're not, right? Now, I had the chills reading this, right? Because I'm reading this book again. I read this many, many years ago, and I'm reading again and again for the study, and I'm thinking, like, how can we be more in sync with this than ever, right? This is 100% exactly what's happening right now. Think about it. Think about it, right? We're going through this shock in our society that we're seeing certain behaviors and extremism and aggression and all those behaviors shocking us. So we're looking at that and we're like, why is this happening? We're so touched by it, right? So there's a reason for that to happen. It's nothing by chance. This is exactly what our friend Manuel is telling us, right? Almost like 15 years ago, he's telling us, right? That, listen, all this stuff that you're looking at is going to happen because it's part of that kind of end stage process where you're going to have some spirits trying to come back and fulfill their missions, others coming back and failing this step and moving on, and you have other spirits that are much more evolved. Now they look at this and we're touched by it. Remember, several hundred years ago, you would see someone being tortured, do all sorts of horrendous things to other people. We wouldn't be touched. Yeah, that happened all the time. That was kind of almost like sometimes a norm of the society, right? Violence, physical violence was like an accepted norm in many cases, right? All sorts of deviant behaviors. Now we look at that, we're like, my God, like I can't take that, right? That tells us that things are changing, right? There's now consequences, right? If not consequences in this world, our consequences we know are going to happen in the spiritual world, right? We know that now, right? So this is happening. And he continues, right? Fruits of people's passions who will suffer their effects in the form of liberating infirmities. The values of full health, flawless joy, personal harmony, integration into cosmic spirit of life will slowly rise. So, in other words, the fact that we're going through this is priming us to run towards peace and support of others and helping others. So it's almost like it's a process where some of us will 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 allow that feeling to come strongly inside of us and say, yes, I have to be this. I have to be on this side of the story, right? And that definitive decision to be on the good side of the story is in itself a step in that more evolution process on that planetary transition. Like, how cool is that, right? Not only that, Orion is kind of, I feel like I'm reading this and this is happening as we talk, because he's going to say, and I love this part, being on the vanguard always test the moral endurance of those who dare to be different in order to evolve. My friends, if you read this nowadays, what do you think? Hey, think about it. Everything going on in the world, right? In different countries, like wars and political things and all sorts of things, right? And I have a picture here in the slide. I don't know if you can tell that. That's from Minneapolis, a beautiful city that I visited many years ago. And now what's happening, right? Look at those people in the streets, right? Freezing cold, supporting others, raising their voices, fighting against people, shooting bullets and tear gas into them. And they're standing, they're there. So this is the type of reaction, societal reaction, that is triggered from that negativity that is drawn into us. So this is exactly what Ryan is describing. And being in the vanguard, being the one saying this is not okay, it's tough. That's what Ryan's saying, right? But he continues, right? Because he doesn't stop there and say, yeah, guys, it's hard, don't do that. No, no, no. He'll continue, my friends. He's going to say, they should never be afraid, however. The Spirit of the Lord will animate them always. Always. So be the good side of the story. That's exactly what he's telling us. And it cannot be more absolutely perfect timing than what we're talking about now, right? And he continues, the motto is still to follow Jesus. There's no doubt about it, right? No doubt about it. So, this is an incredible connection with our common reality right now, right? And he says, as in many battles, difficult moments will arise, requiring balance and prayer. The combatants will be exposed to the world, misunderstood, challenging for acting differently, and for making the foolish uncomfortable, who in their inability to emulate them will fight them. My friends, if you take one thing from this incredible message, right, or revelation message, as Manuel was telling us, is this: by acting differently in a good way, by actually telling people this is not okay, right, will make them uncomfortable. Of course. Think about it. But because we're making the system, we're making the other that is creating the problem uncomfortable, and they cannot be like us, that will cause them to fight us, because then there's no argument against it. People resort to violence. That's been exactly that throughout the entire history of humanity. That's not new, right? We all know that, right? It's been repeating itself over and over. But that cycle's ending, and that's what our great friend Manoel Philomeno de Miranda is bringing to us, yeah, this is it. We're wrapping up, right? We're like the gates closing, right? It's time to move on, and things are gonna be a little bit intense, right? And this kind of, the last bus is about to leave kind of thing, right? And we're all rushing to get in, you know? But be in the good side of the story, be the one that does it differently, be the one that is in the vanguard of the movement of the goodness, right? So goodness, that's amazing. So this is, I mean, I have to say, you can read this probably 5 6 times, and the more you read it, the more you connect to today, right? Just read the news and read this chapter. I think it's going to be very powerful. It's going to be very powerful, and we can keep moving. All right, my friends, you guys are still there. That's good. Um, and then after this incredibly powerful message, right? Yvonne, Manuel, Oscar, they all head back to the quarters, right? To prepare for the earthly experiences that they're going through, right? And the end of the chapter, I'm going to go through the end of um, the end of this passage. So the children choir is going to come back again. They're going to sing for us as we did in the beginning, right? Um, and then immediately after the message, right, the emissary, right, the spirit that gave us the message, went back, right, into this beam of light that carried him back, right, to the Pleiades where he came from. The master of ceremony wrapped up, just like we do in our world, right? Nothing different, right? And they all rose in silence, discussing the message, and um, and heading back to prepare for our next chapter that we're gonna do next week, which is called the Earthly Itineraries, right? This is what we're gonna do now. So enough talking now. Like, this is time to get to work, right? And this is what we're gonna hear next week. So we're gonna do the earthly experiences, chapter 4, and then we earthly itineraries, chapter 4, and we're gonna do try to do as much as possible. Try to do chapter 5. If for any reason we run a little bit out of time, we can split chapter 5. But let's try to do two chapters next week. Okay. So new experiences is chapter 5. Chapter 4 and 5 next week. Okay. All right, my friend. So that was a big summary of our chapters for tonight. If you guys have any questions and comments, I can see you guys are all there still. That's amazing. I see everybody online. I see some hearts. I see some thumbs up. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Any comments? Any questions? This is the time for us to make this more interactive, right? I know Teresa probably has a question. She always has a question. Teresa's on the spot. All right. Okay, my friends. So, we it was a pleasure, having all of you guys here. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Why Teresa is super in part what's going on. I know. Yeah, I cannot agree more. I'll put your comment there. See, Teresa? I'm learning how to use this. um, it is absolutely connecting to our world, right? And what is interesting, even more interesting, is that now going to chapter 4 and 5, and then to the other things, you're going to see that actually more and more we're looking at this messages in this book that are absolutely like matching, right, to what we're going through now. And I have to say, today I had this incredible connection reading this book, preparing for tonight and reading it again, the chapter. And all I could think about in my mind was like, what's happening now? Why am I so upset looking at certain things going on, right? And then I know we hear, the message Jesus, and I like, guys, pay attention, think about it, right? But it's It's an interesting point. Oh, okay, Eve, we got a message for you. Okay, how do we, Eve, how do we balance the idea of an urgent planetary transition with respect for individual timing? That's a great question, right? Um, you know, timing is a very interesting concept, right? Because timeline of things in the spiritual world and in the concept of overall evolution goes through a very different timeline to our own incarnated timeline, right? Our incarnated timeline is kind of fast and furious, right? We come, we'll leave a few years, we go back, we come again, study, come back, like go again. From a spiritual, more evolution perspective, it's much more steady and constant kind of thing, right? So, but what brings to us, though, that's interesting concepts about time is that, and this is not me saying it. This is, basically our master Jesus saying it, and Kardec slamming at us with spiritism, and then Andrea Louise bringing it, kind of slapping back at us, basically saying that, you know, take every minute and every opportunity to do a little step forward, right? And as long as you're focused on the now and you're focused on what you can do to make little changes that are consistent and continuous, you're doing your part, right? So this entire book teaches us exactly the kind of the opposite of what we originally thought, is that, you know, planetary transition's happening. I can't miss the boat. We got to rush and, all of that. It's not exactly that, right? Because what the book is telling us is that, listen, the change is happening and it's happening over millions of years, right? We're going through a process that is natural and it is not happening outside of us, right? It's happening right here, right? And it's a process that requires the constant action, like the constant change. So it's not miraculous. It's not like I'm going to flick this and I'm going to be better. It's not like, everything's going to change tomorrow. No, it's about like, look at yourself. Who am I? What can I do? What am I doing here? And how can I make this the best opportunity of all times? Right? This is all. Like if you focus on the now, there's no urgency of time, right? It's basically, yes, of course, we need to do something, right? But we have to focus on the now, focus on what we can do at the moment, and then build from there every day, every minute, every hour, and then we're going to get there, right? And we don't have to worry about it, right? So it is kind of an interesting, very interesting point, right? So yeah, the plan transition is happening on its own timeline. Our timeline is different, and our timeline requires us basically to do every day our best, right? And that's what it brings to us. Thanks for the question, Eve. That was a great question. Yeah. All right. So again, I would like to thank everyone again for this great opportunity. We're gonna try to keep our meetings to about 45 minutes to an hour. So that's great. So everybody, is still not too tired for tomorrow. If you guys are watching this afterwards, thank you so much for joining us too and watching this. And again, next week we're gonna come back with our chapter 4 and chapter 5, right, of Planetary Transition on Monday at 10. So thank you, God, for this opportunity that we had today. And we'll wish you all a fantastic week. And thank you again for this opportunity. Bye, everyone. Take care.